Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week. And this week, we're talking about it gets better than this. It gets better than this. How can we keep this in the forefront of our mind no matter what is happening? One of the coolest things about what I get to do is I get to watch the teams with whom I work find success. I also get to watch them suffer disappointment. And believe it or not, it feels sort of the same as it did when I was coaching my college teams at Cleveland State and at Akron. We get so excited about when they go well and so frustrated, or what can I do to help when things don't go well? So I spent a lot of time thinking about how I can help the coaches and athletes keep their mental game where it needs to be to use their talents to their fullest. Well, yesterday I got to watch the U.S. soccer team, or women's soccer team, play against New Zealand. And I'm watching with great interest because the assistant coach from New Zealand coaches the club team one of the club teams that I work with here in Ohio, Carrie Sarver, a great U.S. player in her own right. And as I'm watching, I see within the first 5 minutes, one of New Zealand's players gets 2 own goals. What's an own goal? For those of you that know about as much as soccer as I do, an own goal is when you actually score the goal for the other team. So the New Zealand player, trying to defend the goal, heads one in, one deflects off of her leg, scores 2 goals 5 minutes in. Oh, the dejection. And then, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, a shot comes in from the right side of the goal from the U.S., and the defender for New Zealand is right there in center goal, right in the middle, right in front of it, and she tries to block it, and it goes right to the back of the net again. 3, a hat trick of own goals. What do we do with that? What do we do with that as an athlete? What do we do with that as a coach when we're watching our player just get dejected and just be like, oh my gosh? Well, it took me back to something that I just shared with one of my basketball teams who was just working and working for an elusive win. They were so close so many times. But you know the frustrations of losing. Sometimes it's really hard to keep moving. But this team, this basketball team, Division I basketball team that I work with, they have just been fighting and fighting and fighting. And finally, they get that elusive win that they needed to try to get them over the hump as they move toward the tournament. So my basketball team and the New Zealand women's soccer team can remember this. My cousin Mark, I mentioned numerous times that he's a pastor here in Ohio. In his sermon a couple weeks ago, he pulled a card out of his back pocket. It was a little 3x5 card. And what it said on it was this: it gets better than this. His sermon was about heaven and thinking about what is waiting for those of us that believe in heaven and all the good things. And where does my help come from? My help, I look up for my help. We think of heaven as being up. So I shared with my basketball team that to remember that even on our worst days, we can think, it gets better than this. That what was really encouraging to me when I was listening to the message was, even on our best days, it gets better than this. That's amazing. But if we can keep this in mind, the fact that when things aren't going our way, it will get better. Why? How do I prove that when the bottom line doesn't show? Because every day we're growing. Every day we're learning something new if we want to. Every day we get the choice to go back out and fight and follow the process. Every day, even the challenges that we are pushed through or that are set in front of us and that we are working against are building us to be better in the future. It gets better than this. That's the cool part. And where does our help come from? Our help comes from the people around us and us looking up, not looking down. No answers have ever been found on the top of someone's shoes. Unless they have a cheat sheet down there when they were in high school. But the bottom line is this, that our help comes from, if we are looking at this from a religious context, and you may believe what I believe, you may not, and that really doesn't matter, but we look up. We have to look up. And when we look up, we find solutions and we find people who can help us. The problem is that when we don't feel like it can get any better than this, we isolate, we look down, we can't find solutions, we can't find help. But that's a choice. And we have to remember, if we can have a running theme in our head that it gets better than this, we can get through and move to the other side. I reminded my team also that we know that if you believe in heaven, heaven's not free. You don't just walk in by doing nothing. You have to make decisions. Nothing we are going to get is free either. We're old enough to know that everything doesn't go our way and we're not going to get anything without working. So I likened this persistence to a drip of water. Think about the drip of water that carved 277 miles in Arizona in the Grand Canyon. It's a mile wide, it's however deep it is. I mean, it's huge. Water, the water had to go through rough times. It had to go through mud and debris and all kinds of obstacles. And when it got to an obstacle, it decided that it was going to go around it. It found a way. Water always finds a way, just like the water found a way into my light socket when the snow was melting here just recently. How fun. But water always finds a way. It didn't always flow with power. Sometimes it trickled. Sometimes it almost dried up. But it didn't stay there and pool. It kept flowing. And that's what we have to do. If we are going to get somewhere, remembering that it gets better than us, we can't just, it can't just sit here and wait for it to happen. We have to be persistent, like that drip of water. Even when we don't feel like fighting, maybe we can just drip and make our way ever so persistently and ever so subtly until the flow gets back to us, because it will get better than this. So no matter where you are in your season, for basketball teams, you're getting ready for the tournament. For the U.S. soccer team, they're going on their way. The New Zealand team, they have to play again. It gets better than this. If we're winning, it gets better than this if we work at it. And we are like water and keep looking up and keep finding our way. If we're not winning, it gets better than this. So we've got to remember to keep that in the forefront of our mind. And remember that our help comes from looking up at those around us and the opportunities that lie ahead. So as you look into the next week, no matter what you came off of this past weekend in competition, remember, it gets better than this. If you'd like to read more tips like this one, go to ssbperformance.com/blog. I would love to share this with your team. You can contact me at juliej@ssbperformance.com. Until next week, remember, it gets better than this.